I want to talk to you about one more auction type. And this is an auction type that's gained quite a bit of popularity recently. And I'll talk to you about the advantages and disadvantages of it. The other auction types I talk to you about could happen either in the B2C, that's business to consumer space, or in the business to business space. This is geared directly towards business to business types of transactions. And this is called a reverse auction, or sometimes called a supply auction as well. Here's the basic idea. Suppose you're a company and you need stamped metal. You need a whole lot of stamped metal for some kind of manufacturing process that you're going to do. And you've been buying stamped metal from a supplier for a long time, but there are other suppliers of stamped metal out there. What you can decide to do is say, all right, here is the exact specifications and the quantities of the stamped metal that I need. Go out to all the suppliers for stamped metal and conduct an auction where, in this case, the high price doesn't win, the low price wins, right? You're asking them to supply these goods that you've specified to you at the lowest price possible. Okay, that's the essential element of a reverse or a supply auction. So what's key about it? You've got to have some kind of product that's easily specified, where you can write down in fine detail exactly what you need them to supply, because if it's vague, you're probably going to have difficulty comparing one company's offer to another company's offer. So this really works well for perhaps commodities or highly engineered products, where you can make that level of specificity. But if you can make that level of specificity, there are a lot of companies that are turning to doing just this sort of thing. I mapped it out for you right here because I wanted to emphasize an additional point, that it's a very important point from the standpoint of the buyer. So you've got users, in this case users or sellers, they make an offer to supply for a certain price and to provide that good or service, whatever you've specified. Then there's something called a reverse auction factory or a reverse auction house. Generally, companies contract with other companies that specialize in running these kinds of auctions. There are companies that do it themselves, but there are specialist kind of consulting firms that will run these kind of auctions for you, and you can contract with them. So it goes through a reverse auction house or a factory, and then that reverse auction house can also rate the potential suppliers on different dimensions of quality. They may have worked with them before, they may have seen other supply contracts, so that the buyer doesn't just get a price, they also get some rating on the quality. And the reason that ends up being important is this point right here. Generally in auctions, the winner is determined, like whoever has the highest bid wins. Automatic, they win, right? In this kind of auction, the buyer does not have to pick the lowest costs supplier. Now, they are bidding and they are producing lower bids, that's true, and the buyer may like that and may in fact go with the lowest bid, but maybe based on reputation or other quality information they have, they may choose to go with another supplier rather than just the one with the lowest bid. Here is a screen that looks like what a reverse auction looks like to the bidders. Okay, so I've seen these kind of screens before. This is a very nice reproduction of what they see. So a reverse auction happens in a particular period of time. In this one, it started at 10 o'clock in the morning, okay, and then goes to a particular time. And in general, this one, for example, ended at 11 o'clock. Okay, so I'll put 11 a.m. up there. Now, why are there bids past 11 o'clock if it's supposed to stop at 11 o'clock? One feature of these auctions is if there's bidding in the last, let's say, minute, the auction extends another minute or two. And then if someone bids in that minute, it extends another minute or two. These are called overtime bids. And that continues until kind of the bidding stops. So in this case, it went 12 minutes of overtime. And then what you see here, each of the shapes represents an individual supplier. And you can see what's going on here is over time, these bids are going down. Now, one interesting feature that I want to point out that's very common in these kind of auction situations, and that's the bid of this particular supplier right here, these kind of tan colored diamonds. I hope you're seeing that color right. But it's often the case that the bids go down, 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 and then there's one supplier that just follows the bids down but stays a little bit above the lowest bid. And frankly, that is often the incumbent supplier. That means that the supplier that the business is working in right now, they're making a bet that even though they're not the lowest bidder, that the buyer, the business, will still go with them. So they're following the bidding down, but not going all the way. And in fact, the supplier may know that's what's going on, and they may have known all along that they would like to pick that supplier, but they made them go through this bidding process to get their supply costs down from the original contract with the supplier. So in other words, these other bidders may be quite real, but they may be just being used to drive the bids down for the incumbent supplier. Certainly you see that kind of behavior in this market. Lots of government contracts are sourced using this right now. I just clipped this from a government website. They're out. The government is trying to buy paper towels and toilet tissue. Government cost estimate was about $1.9 million. And by putting this out to bid, they've estimated that they saved about $500,000 on that. Here's another one where they're out for a whole lot of copy paper. They use a lot of copy paper in the government, right? So we got about $1.3 million in copying paper, and the cost savings achieved, at least their best estimate, it's about 16.7% relative to their incumbent supplier that they, the one that they've got right now. Now, there are some disadvantages to these kinds of auctions. So this is a pricing course, and we are focused in on pricing. But you can imagine in a supplier relationship where two businesses are working with each other, focusing just on price and kind of ignoring all the other relationship information that you might have with that business can destroy some amount of trust in the supplier relationship. So you may have to sacrifice something to achieve that kind of cost savings. So in the real world, you have to ask yourself the question, is the cost savings that I think I'm going to get from putting it out to this kind of auction really worth it or not? And from the supplier side, you have to ask the question, do I really want to get involved in a reverse auction, or am I willing to let that contract go and stay away from it because the price pressure is going to be too much and I just don't think I can make margins in that kind of market? So those are the disadvantages, and companies, they make their trade-offs in this space, whether they want that cost savings, they want that price reduction, or they want a broader, maybe deeper relationship with their supplier.